Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's Star Report. This is Jason. I'm here at New Dimensions Crystals and Reiki in downtown Brenham, Texas, coming to you with this week's Star Report, which begins on Wednesday, September 20th through September the 26th. And as usual, we start with what's happening with our closest star, the sun. Over the last week, we've seen that the sun has been super active, not necessarily with large eruptions, but with several eruptions over the last week. So you might have been feeling that persistent energetic flow, right? Sometimes that would present as an anxiety. Sometimes that would present as just sort of that tingly feeling. Sometimes it's even sort of experienced as an anxiety that sort of leaves you almost like sugar depleted. I guess they call that hypoglycemic, right? Where you're having a sugar crash, but it's that persistent thing like you didn't have a lot of sugar or you didn't have a lot of caffeine. And then even resugaring or recaffeinating doesn't help that stuff. So that's what sort of happens with solar flares. And so those solar flares produced a couple of CMEs that had some significant impacts and caused geo electric and geomagnetic storms on the surface of the planet in our atmosphere as they hit. And so, just a reminder of what that sort of does. That usually causes some brain fog, causes some anxiety, like I was saying. If you have an immune or a mood disorder, sometimes it triggers that, right? Whether that's caused from actual disorders or the over abundance of parasites in the body, that would cause those things to sort of trigger flare ups, right? So symptomatic stuff would sort of rise and then sometimes be less managed by your normal managing techniques, whether those be meditation, breath work, or medication. So pay attention that might have been something that was underlying what was going on with you for the last week. And then, of course, in our physical reality or the stuff that happens outside of our own body, when the sun is active like that, it causes tech slowdowns, right? So sometimes your internet speeds, your ability to sort of download stuff with your routers and stuff like that might need to be rebooted a lot. And sometimes that'll also start to mess with electrical issues, right? Dead batteries in your car, sometimes shorts or an extreme replacing of light bulbs in the house are all kinds of things that might go on with that. And so the current solar weather is nothing is currently, I think, shooting out towards, and we're not awaiting a current as of 9:40 a.m. Central Time. We are not currently awaiting a CME impact, but we are watching a lot of active regions that are happening, which are solar sunspots, and where there's been a couple of solar flares that did produce a CME over the last 24 hours. And so that large spot is beginning to become a center of the disk that's facing the Earth. And so when we look at that, that's always just a heads up to watch your solar weather and sort of see if there's any eruptions that come towards us. There are some coronal holes, but they're tiny, right? So usually it needs to be a larger coronal hole to have a extreme effect, but it might be affecting a little bit of heaviness, right? So you might be feeling a little bit of pressure, almost like you're being squeezed or wrung out like a sponge, or maybe it's harder to fill the lungs all the way. And so pay attention with that. That should be over the next day and a half as those coronal holes move out of the Earth facing part of the sun. I believe that's all that's happening on the sun. It's a little bit much. So all of the energy sort of feels like, the beginning of school, the beginning of all this other stuff that's going on. It's county fair season down here in Texas. We're back in the routine of being busy. It is all being sort of affected by the solar flare stuff, right? So we're probably, even if we're focused on a whole bunch of different things, not really paying attention to that. We're just ending up fatigued or irritated. So pay attention to being fatigued and irritated this week. Let's go jumping right into the stars then that are further away than the sun. Astrologically, we're still in a couple of retrogrades. We're in Pluto retrograde, and so Pluto is in retrograde still, and that's going to be until October the 10th. So that one's almost done. Pluto is really about, clearing out and healing old emotional wounds and triggers. accepting and forgiving um, yourself and others, and just sort of becoming empowered by not being controlled by things inside of you that are you consider shameful or broken, right? And so sometimes that retrograde heals that or makes you have a different perspective that it's not a brokenness, but a strength. We're currently also still in Saturn retrograde until November the 3rd. And Saturn retrograde is really about creating an authentic occupation, right? So if you've been like, my job sucks, or if you're a small business owner like me and you're like, hey, crap's a little hard to do these days, whether that be low numbers, whether that be just effort to be open, whether that to be if you have multiple employees, whether that's to find helpers or people to actually fill slots. uh, that's that's all stuff that's sort of realigning, right? So if you want to think of it as a challenge, it's a challenge you to realign yourself. Are you structured in a way that allows you to do what you set out to do, right? And then maybe if you're even thinking about that, like, what did you start the business because you could, or because you had this like deep desire to help people, right? So did you want to somehow create a space like here at New Dimensions where people can understand their divine eternal soul that's never going to die, and that there are minor things that they can do to intervene to start to reveal that to themselves and sort of find a path, right? And more so in a way which it's not about doing it as a group, but more, so like not congregating necessarily in large gatherings with other people, but sort of figuring it out for yourself that there's something at this core that could be revealed that has power, and that power starts with two things, right? Self-love, right? You're worthy of love and abundance because you are this divine eternal soul that's never going to die. And also that you're authentic, right? That you're not filtering, right? So if you are this divine eternal soul that's never going to die, worthy of love and affection, yet you're not acting like that out loud, right? That sort of filters or rev limits the amount of energy that you produce into the world, and therefore reduces the amount that the world can reflect back to you, right? So if you're this divine eternal soul that's never going to die, worthy of love and affection, and you're not broadcasting that out to the world, you're broadcasting something less than, the world is going to reflect back the less than part. And so you might be sort of in these difficulties, right? So that's what I'm talking about: authentic occupation, authentic life. And then being sort of recognized for it, like, hey, that dude's authentic. Hey, that guy's pretty awesome. I keep pointing at myself. Right, whatever your mantra is and however you describe yourself to in your own mind, right? These things are something that are important. Also Neptune, we're in Neptune retrograde still till December the 6th. And so Neptune retrograde is really about what is the path of your soul, right? So what is the soul path in general? Like, what's the point of being alive, separate from source, interactive? Why are we here on the planet, kind of stuff. But also your innate spiritual path, like what is your particular skill set, right? And a lot of those things are done with like the revelation and being authentic, like who am I, what do I want to be, what does a body do, how does my lungs work, how are all these things in conjunction together creating a me, how was I raised, where did I live, how do I understand myself, how do I understand myself outside of all that stuff. Those are the kind of things that happen with a Neptune retrograde. Chiron retrograde till December the 26th. Oh, we're doing a lot of stuff. I'm talking fast, trying to get it all in. December the 26th is when Chiron goes back into direct. And that's just the ability to sort of recognize pattern recognition. So Chiron, old patterns, these sometimes can be called blueprints, templates, right? Sort of things that sneak below the surface where it's just a thought like, oh, well, this is how the world functions. Like the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, right? And so, and then any kind of attitude about how that is, like rich people are bad for getting richer and poor people are deserving because they're not getting out of their own poorness, right? All those kinds of things start to be a pattern from probably childhood, probably early education, right? Where there's sort of this description of discovering the self or understanding you, right? And usually that's done by judgment of what you're not or what else is. So sometimes those patterns can be locked in, right? When they were beneficial for recognition, but they aren't beneficial for an operating system, right? You aren't that as a general purpose, and people aren't all of that, right? If you are a divine eternal soul worthy of love and affection, so is everybody else, right? And we're trying to discover and reveal what that is. Uranus is still in retrograde, and that's going to be till January the 27th. And so, through the new year, January 27th, Uranus. That's just about being independent, right? Learning how to, once you know all these things, not be driven or swayed by outside opinions of what that is, right? Oh, look at you being all, hoity-toity about, your ascension, your self-discovery, your physical fitness, your whatever you've discovered about the internet, whether that be, hey, astrology is crazy, or maybe the timelines in the way we discover history, whether the world is round or flat, right? If it's flat, those aren't really stars. And what's Jason talking about? All those kinds of things, right? Being directed, be independent, not governed by that, right? If you're a divine eternal soul worthy of love and affection, what does that mean despite what happens to be reflecting back or outside of the self, right? Round earth, flat earth, all that kind of stuff. That's Uranus. And then the last one that we're still in, six, one, two, three, four, five, six. Yep. Jupiter. I was like, hey, did I get them all right? Jupiter is really going to be here till December the 31st, right? So just into the end of the year. It's about planning, right? People that people that tend to be focused on metaphysical things, spiritual things, sometimes have a hard time organizing, right? And so this is really about planning and structuring, right? And so planning to be what you are, the way that works, right? And that could be as easy as setting up a daily pattern, a daily to-do list of I wake up, I meditate, I exercise, right? Wake up early if you can't fit it in. Starting your day with that is more important than fitting it in the middle of the day or doing it at the end of the day, right? As a last thought, right? Because that's almost like putting yourself last. And if you're a divine eternal soul where the love and affection, then putting yourself last is not normal. And then also Jupiter is about big stuff, abundance, right? So not only are you planning and finding out the details of that, but you're allowing yourself and the possibility to grow beyond what you think they can be, right? So if you're thinking and you've got this tiny little picture, think bigger is what Jupiter's telling you. That's what we're currently under here with the sun and just the way the planets are in alignment and retrograding today, Wednesday. What did I say today was again? The 20th. I was like, what is today? Wednesday, the 20th. And we're still under the influence of the cosmic kite and the cosmic rectangle. So basically, what's happening over the next couple of days, because the equinox is fast approaching, is that all points and parts of us are coming into view, right? So if you're imagining that the sun was over here and darkness was over here, and you were working on the light side of yourself and the shadow side of yourself, right? And so sometimes you could focus here and you could focus there. It's almost like you're being raised up out of either a cavern or a pit, or maybe walls have come down from around it, right? And now light is shining from all sides. So there's really no part of you that's becoming unrevealed, right? And this is sort of important because also this week we're leaving Virgo, the usually associated with the womb alchemically, right? And also the virgin or giving birth in the womb. And so all of these things that we've been working on, everything and all the retrogrades I just sort of brought up, everything that's been happening is really about preparing to be born or being born, right? So when we leave Virgo, right, when we leave the womb, what happens? Sometimes that's leaving the focus of the womb, right? We put everything into the womb we needed. Now the baby or the personality or whatever we've put into our metaphysical womb to grow, now we're going to let it gestate for a while, maybe till the spring equinox. But all that kind of stuff is sort of happening today, Wednesday. And so that's not unimportant, right? All of you is revealed. And sometimes you can sort of look at this as a, let's see, what's not synchronicity, but you can sort of look at this as a creation story, right? Sometimes the seventh day is about resting, right? God rested because everything was ready, or God rested because all the ingredients were done and time and baking time and gestation time are going to come to fruition in that spring equinox, right? So that leads us into Thursday, Friday, where we actually hit the equinox, fall equinox entering Libra. So Libra is associated with, I should put these on the same page. Libra is associated with the kidneys, the adrenal glands, and the bladder, right? So the ability to sort of filter out and filtrate what doesn't sort of be needed, the ability to sort of get that out of the body through the bladder, and then the adrenal glands, right? The energy, the vitality, the drive, right? Sometimes in the adrenal glands usually are sort of felt like underneath the armpits, right? Is where you'll sort of feel some tiredness or fatigue, right? Almost like you've lifted something heavy for a while. And paying attention to that sort of stuff, when the adrenals sort of overload, it's almost like even if you're rested, you're tired. Even if you're caffeinated, you're not finding any recuperating, right? And so sometimes even your adrenal glands can mess with your sleep patterns, right? So you can sleep all this extra time, but your adrenal glands just can't catch up, right? With the anxiety, with the overthinking, with the what am I gonna be? And so you also want to think of this Libra as taking a pause and going, instead of looking into the future, sort of coming into a balance now. Like I've done all the work I can. Let me sit here and experience the fruits of my labors, or watch, because I've done the work, how that's going to shake out, right? Whether that's the business, the relationship, or all that kind of fun stuff. Yeah, so big stuff happening Thursday, Friday with turning into Libra. Um, Pay attention to when you sort of come to that sort of calm balance. When you come to that calm balance, not if. When you come to that calm balance, what's a reoccurring thought? What's a synchronicity that's sort of happening, right? And you want to think about that as a message from the subconscious, a message from beyond, from your guides, your angels, whoever you want to think it might be from outside the self, right? This repetitive sort of thought process that seems positive, right? If it's a negative thing, like the collapse of a banking system or world war, right? That might be something that is being triggered, that is unhelpful. But if it's something just like, hey, I think I left a candle burning. Hey, I think yada yada. Something that sort of mundane, where it's something out of the ordinary of your regular routine, but it keeps happening and you keep thinking about it. And even when you double check it, what is that repetitive thought trying to get you to know? And then also Friday is Saturn's going to be the closest it's been going to be all year to Venus, right? So that Saturn and Venus energy, authentic love, right? People will say that love is the strongest energy you can project, but actually authenticity is the strongest. And so loving the authentic self is really, you can sort of magnify or even double, multiply. Yeah, magnify all those things, the energy when you can be both, right? When you can do in a loving way, being your authentic self, that's a bigger creative energy for yourself. Saturday, nothing much is happening. Sunday, we're moving into the last 22 master day of 2023. Master days, for a reminder, are really just when the numerology of the calendar that we currently live under are aligned to give you extra energy, right? So if you've been in indecision or lacked the adrenal glands power to do stuff, right? Sometimes that extra energy from the numerology of the day can help you sort of make those choices. Or if you're under a siege and attack from things outside of yourself, they can sort of, give you the bearing or the strength to sort of resist that stuff and start back in a new direction of broadcasting the authentic self outwards. So that would be Sunday. So could be a very restful day, could be a very energetically awakening day, right? Where you feel like you need to do something about this new energy. Monday and Tuesday are really about pausing, being in this now. And let's see if we have anything else on the next page. That's the last part. So really about enjoying what you've built, right? If you're working this hard on yourself, if you're working this hard on your business, if you're working this hard on your relationships, if you're working this hard on your family, right? uh, there has to come a point in time where you can sort of enjoy that. And so Monday and Tuesday is really sort of that energy where you start to just get past all of this transitional stuff, right? But also we are by the end of the week, we're probably almost to the eclipse season, right? Which is solar and lunar eclipses in the end of the year, as we have and those eclipses are really about reboots, restarts, revelations, right? So sometimes this is like you've created the thing and then now you're looking at it as it grows on its own, and you're seeing the potentials of it, or how things that you thought or were wondering about how they might turn out, how even better than you expected they turned out, right? So that's the energy we should be moving into Monday, Tuesday, leading into the eclipse season of next month. So I think that's everything for the star report. Pay attention to newdimensionscrystals.com if you want to come by the shop, or if you're in the Brenham area. I do have a lot of extra things going on in the world, right? So try to book up whatever is available. Sometimes on your preferred day, they might not be available, but you can go to dimensionscrystals.com under services and you can book now. If you're having a hard time adjusting that energy within yourself, we can do an energy session. If you are needing to sort of do a physical sort of reboot, we can do a breathwork session. And then, of course, when you stop in the shop, we got crystals, incense, and all kinds of other wisdom that I don't get to mention here in the star report because it's not about what's the environmental energy that we're working with. And we could talk about that. I think that's newdimensionscrystals.com if I didn't say it. And then, of course, you can come by the shop in downtown Brenham, Texas. Until next week, everybody, many blessings.